Ah, Love Tribe. I'm so excited to have a soul brother here with me who is one of the founding members of the Denver space, the space in Denver. This is like Bitcoin Park, Bitcoin Commons. I'm so proud of what you guys have been doing there. You're also the founder of Basilic Financial. You're an entrepreneur, an urbanist, somebody who is bringing the community around Denver and Boulder and all of these areas to the space. Welcome, Wyatt O'Rourke. How's it going, brother?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Val.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Um, Dude, what's going on? Tell everybody who you are and what's happening in the world of Wyatt and why you're here and how we're going to talk about humanity's fatal flaw.
Absolutely. No, I'm pumped to be here. This is probably the article, the piece I've written I'm most proud of. And, really just try to bring in, a bunch of things I've learned from the Bitcoin community, made a huge effort over the last 2 years to get involved because I've gotten so much out of the community. So it's like, what can I get back? And, the space is a huge part of that. We just formally moved into a gorgeous building here at the beginning of October. It's been a labor of love. It's a community driven effort. The folks at Bitcoin Commons, Bitcoin Park, they've been tremendously helpful and giving us advice, but they're a little bit more top down, where we're a little more bottom up, community driven, member run and operated, and so it's just been so rewarding being a part of something like that, and being able to build something from scratch, and really conceptualize an idea into something physical. And you're a huge part of that as well. I won't be the same without you.
There you go.
I was
Like
gonna say, I think you might
there's
have dropped
Val.
there. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm on this side of the screen. So if I'm looking at you, does it look like I'm looking away or am I looking at you?
No, it still looks like you're looking at me.
Still look like I'm looking. Oh, good. Okay, this is better. Okay, so we're going to really, I pulled up your article too on X and I want to go through a diagram, but first of all, let's let everybody know a little bit about your background, right? Like, how did you
Totally.
get to this point? How come you're a Bitcoiner? What transformational thing went, in your life that you became a Bitcoiner?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm a devout Catholic, and it's like a striking resemblance of like the two more worldviews combined. So that gives me a ton of faith and confidence moving forward on a new monetary standard. But I always joke it's like I'm traditionally trained in finance, and like a lot of good that does me now as a Bitcoiner. But it took me a long time. I was frustratingly slow, to the bandwagon. But um, fortunately, I live with a roommate after college who orange pilled me, Noah Marsh. I give him a ton of credit for that. I had to really retrain myself in the Bitcoin ways, but
Hmm.
I've always really identified as an entrepreneur, to begin with, and so. I've had a couple startups. I'm working on building Basilic Financial right now. We're a state registered RIA in Colorado, and we really work with clients to help bridge the gap between traditional financial services and Bitcoin financial services, and
Cool.
really try to be a coach, a mentor, a sounding board, and help grow Bitcoin adoption and bring people into a new monetary system where it's not hard to find the flaws in our existing monetary system. And it's like I always, well, one of the reasons I love Bitcoin is like one of those things, like once you see it, like you can't unsee it, right? And it
Yeah.
just opens up like this whole new world of rabbit holes that I've enjoyed diving into and learning more about. And you just get to meet so many great people through those different connections and mutual synergies. It's fantastic. I love Bitcoin.
Me too. I want to come back to you. You said it, being a devout Catholic, like Bitcoin, has some similarities. Like, can you help everybody understand what that means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I always joke with my Protestant friends. It's like I believe Catholicism. We're the one true church, and we kind of have like the different branches and denominations that come off of that. I think of Bitcoin as being like the one true blockchain, and then you have all these
Okay.
offshoots and shitcoins out off of that. But you really, it's just kind of like I bring it back to like the moral worldview, where it's like as Catholics, we believe in Lord, and savior, right? So it's like, the savior is the good aspect, you know, the unconditional love, the forgiveness, but there's also the Lord aspect, where there's suffering is innate within our human nature and our human condition,
Mhm.
and I think in order to get through those things, you need to have long term time preference. You need to sacrifice, and you need to be devotional to your work, and I think just given some of the native properties of Bitcoin and how it can't be debased, it's just built in something true and foundational, much like I think the faith.
Okay, cool. And when you're talking with other people who are also Catholic in your family or your friends or at your church, like, do they see it? Have they had their eyes open, from this lens? I'd just be curious, like, what's been your experience on that level?
Absolutely. No, they are definitely starting to. I attended the Thank God for Bitcoin conference in
Cool.
Nashville this year, and that was a really cool experience. And that is more a Christian conference, so it's kind of a little broad in scope there, but they did a tremendous job just pointing out the similarities between Bitcoin and Christianity, and it really is like eerie. You can find multiple biblical references about how inflation is theft, and how tyrants are not to be tolerated, and it's just like these things
Mhm.
are so innate and core in Bitcoin. So seeing the correlation of the two, I think, is definitely opening some eyes. One of the projects I'm working on right now is kind of tweaking like the Thank God for Bitcoin conference, and making it, or Thank God for Bitcoin thesis, excuse me, and making it specifically Catholic, and I'm working on a presentation to give to my parish, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to do that, and just to see how people react, because I don't think it's intuitive for people to make the connection, and so it's like if you are able to, and seeing the light bulb goes off, it's pretty rewarding.
I love that. And so, okay, so you're taking the Thank God for Bitcoin presentation and you're tailoring a little bit more from a Catholic lens. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
Okay. I love it. And I think that's so important, Wyatt, because again, when you speak people's languages, you have a lot more opportunities to connect. But if you're over here and you're trying to communicate something and they're like, yeah, I kind of get it. And okay, yeah, maybe the dots can connect. It's like everything is story and analogy and vocabulary, right? And so it's like if we're relating things, and associating things in languages, that are familiar, that we believe in, that makes sense, it's a whole lot easier to help people connect the dots, and I think that's our jobs, right? As humans, is being dot connectors. And so, so right now, like, you are obviously working on, the space, you're working on Basilic Financial. I love that you're helping bridge this, TradFi with Bitcoin world. Like, what are you finding with your clients? Like, are most of your clients coming in, like, are they equally curious about Bitcoin and TradFi, or are they mostly TradFi and you're like, oh, let's orange pill them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question, and what I found is a couple people, I believe it's my fiduciary duty, to talk about Bitcoin,
Yeah.
best performing asset, um, and it's funny, seeing how people come to it, or like you were saying, meeting them at their level, and trying to find that light bulb moment. A lot of people do recognize to some extent the money is broken, right? They can't quite put their finger on it, but they know something's off, right? And so you have like some gold bugs per se, that are pretty in tune with the money being broken. They just don't
Mhm.
know or are comfortable with Bitcoin, or a lot of people are concerned with inflation, and that's an easy intro into Bitcoin. So when I sit down to do a financial plan, I always make sure to actually use this tool called Nakamoto Portfolio, which was
Mhm.
open sourced by Swan, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. I would highly recommend everybody go check that out, and they have multiple finance resources to play with there. It's a great site. So I put in their existing portfolio so they can see how it compares to Bitcoin, and I think that really does help open people's eyes. It's like goes up is a great entry strategy to try to help grow Bitcoin adoption, and from there we can generally crack the shell, and go into its permissionless properties, how to actually be a sovereign individual, and help people recognize that what power they have when they opt out of the existing monetary standard and opt into a Bitcoin standard. And something foundational about Basilic is we only focus on sound custody solutions. And so, I don't advocate for the ETF. We go the extra mile and make sure, we're taking custody of the bare asset itself, because it's not just about price appreciation. It's so much more than that.
It is. It's and I think, are you finding, obviously, because self custody is the whole purpose of Bitcoin, is that you're not just, okay, I'm going to just give my wealth to the third party again and just entrust the third party, right? And so, are you finding people, because people who I talk to, certainly people who have been hedge fund managers and in traditional finance, or just people who aren't in finance, and they just are like, well, I want to be able to call customer service, and I want to be able to, I don't want to remember 12 words. And what do you mean a metal plate? And what's this little thing? Like, are you finding people resisting you? Or are they like, okay, I can do this, like I'm the bank thing? Like, how are people responding to that part?
Yeah, it's a great question, Val, and thank you for that. So, when I was building out our Bitcoin division, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
I would try to be very cognizant of that. And I partnered with Unchained, who I believe to
Cool.
be the premier Bitcoin financial services company in the country. And we've offered tiers of custody solutions, so ranging from their standard 2 of 3, everything's a 2 of 3 vault, right? But
Can you explain to people, just and just in case they don't know what that means, what's multi-sig, what's 2 of 3?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a vault, which is like a wallet, and then with 3 total keys. You need 2 of the 3 to send a transaction, right? And so those can be distributed and held by different parties depending on your comfortability with the asset, the technology, the network. We make sure to take all those things into account when making a custody recommendation. But we have 3 tiers to try to meet people where they're at. So their standard, you hold 2 keys, Unchained has 1. We have the advisor model where Unchained has 1, you have 1, and then I have 1 as the advisor. And then we're also able to offer a multi-institutional multi-sig model where Unchained has 1, and we can enroll 2 key agents to hold the
Mm-hmm.
keys as well. And so that's much more of like a traditional experience of logging into like a Charles Schwab account sort of
Right.
thing. But your Bitcoin is still custodied in a 2 of 3 multi-sig wallet. So there definitely is, a learning curve, and I encourage people to do their own research. This is something that you're not going to learn in an hour, and that's okay. We really, resources like yourself, you've done a tremendous job of helping meet people where they're at, and that's what I view one of my main roles as well, in making people feel comfortable with the choice they made, the choice we recommend. But it's ultimately finding a solution where they're comfortable, and people are at different tiers, and I've had clients interested in all 3 different custody models.
Yeah, totally. It's super important, I think, for people to take baby steps. And if they do feel more confident with, other folks helping to hold the keys, it's really important. I know I get some questions like, well, how do you know they're not going to, if you let this party and then Unchained or whoever, and then I only have 1 key and they need 2 of 3, how do you know they're not going to collude and take my Bitcoin, And so there's obviously those questions. And it's just like, well, how do you know Schwab's not going to just like sell your Apple
Yeah,
stock?
right.
And, it's like they have legal responsibilities or businesses. They're not going to do that. But so I think there's a lot of layers of comfort that we can offer folks, and like you said, meet them where they're at. It's really important. Let's talk about your article. And let's talk about the name of this show. And, this was one of the questions you wanted to bring up. And so I'll let you kind of explain things, but I do want to go to one graph. I have your article pulled up.
Yeah.
And because it's really, really, I'm a visual learner, and it just hit me. I was like, oh, and I noticed exactly when everything started going up with all the toxicity and stuff. So let's talk about help everybody understand, why you want to talk about this and why you wrote this article and what's going on.
Totally, totally. So I'll just start with caveating this as a licensed financial professional. None of this is financial advice, um, strictly educational purposes only. But I'm an aspiring think boy. I really like to write, and
Mhm.
I feel like I have learned so much, and I really value all the the work put out by the Bitcoin community, I wanted to, try to give back and put my thoughts and leave my mark out there as well. And one of the things I think, I can, or I'm unique, decent ability at least, is, trying to, connect dots. And so this
Yeah.
piece specifically was really inspired by Lynn Alden and Larry Lepard.
Cool.
Um, Larry is, famous for, saying fix the money, fix the world. And so I
Hmm.
really wanted to like dig into, it's like, well, what does that mean? Right. And so kind of the thesis I came up with, and this was, the part inspired by Lynn Alden, is, humanity's fatal flaw is when the technological superior power centralizes the money, right?
Mm.
And I think, we can really trace that back to a lot of the falls of great, human civilizations. And I know Brandon Quittem at Swan does a great job talking about, the fourth turning, and that's kind of on like this 80-year sequence. I think that kind of builds into like Ray Dalio's like sovereign
Hmm.
debt crisis thesis, which is on a longer time frame. That's more like a 250-year cycle. And
Hmm.
so I just try to, combine, the thoughts of what both those guys are saying, and distill it down into, what I think is a series of pattern recognition. And I'm certainly not a
Hmm.
macroeconomic expert or anything. I just try to, identify patterns and see how they unfold. And so, in doing so, there's like this, I'm mentioning here, you see on the screen, very, common phrase, strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men, create bad times. It's like, well, what are like the functions of that actually happening? And before I get into the stages, which are, outlined underneath that, I think, just kind of a perfect representation of this is in Lynn Alden's book Broken Money. She talks about how, Belgian traders from Europe, arrive in Africa, and they want spices and minerals and resources and stuff, but they're still on a monetary standard where they're trading, beads, and that is their economic measuring unit, is beads. And I mean, these are glass beads that the Europeans are able to, manufacture in a factory. And so they're
Hmm.
able to, take those manufactured beads, spend them, in Africa. And, before the Africans, know it, like they've been robbed of their resources because the economic measuring unit, has not been the same. It's been distorted. Right. And so I think, through that distortion process, we see all these, bad things. And I think like our worst instincts as humans kind of come out, through the manipulation process.
Totally. And just going back to the fourth turning, because we've got, William Strauss and Neil Howe wrote this back in 97. And um, so I think a lot of us, are interested in, like what you had said. And this is where we're at, is this fourth turning. I think we're in debauchery right now where we're about to
Yeah.
fall,
Yeah.
and it's really scary to me as a mother, and thinking about the future and what's going to happen with our children. And, are my children going to be able to have a life that they want to, keep moving forward and have kids and bring kids into this world, because we're in this kind of, uh, free fall. I think society right now is completely just disconnected to love. It's disconnected from truth. It's disconnected from harmony. It's disconnected from each other. And it's on purpose because of power and control and greed and manipulation, and I feel very, I'm nervous, I'm hopeful as a Bitcoiner, but I'm just still a little bit nervous as a human, because we're not caught up yet, and technology is going way faster, and it's doing a lot of things that are magic, right? But it's also doing a lot of things that are, being used against us, And so, what would you say to people who are listening about, to the technological gifts that we have, and how can we protect ourselves as individuals and as, parents and future generation protectors?
Totally. No, absolutely. And, I think you bring up some fantastic points there. I'm an aspiring, parent, myself. And, that certainly has crossed, my wife and I's, mind. But, you know, part of what gives us confidence in the future is our faith. We received a sacrament of marriage, and we take that seriously, and we believe it's our vocation and our calling to bring more humans into the world. Humans
Yeah.
are like a beautiful thing, and I think I will defend that to my last breath. And it's like that is what we are called to do. That's innate within any animal species, is to reproduce. And I also, take a lot of pride in the fact that humans are technological beings, and I included this quote from Naval Ravikant. I would love to read that. Just does a
Here.
beautiful job.
Yeah, let me put it up. Are you gonna read it there, or do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, I could do either, or if it's just up a little bit if you
Yeah,
want.
this one?
Yeah.
Here, go
Yep.
ahead, you
So
read it out loud.
humans are exceptional. In epistemology, humans are the only non-Bayesian reasoners. In evolution, humans are the only mimetic creatures that we know of. In the theory of computation, humans are the only universal explainers that we know of, other than, of course, the computers that we've invented. In fact, the mind-blowing thing here is that your mind cannot be blown. There's no idea out there that your mind cannot absorb given the time and effort.
I love
So
it. Yeah,
right, and it's like I think about this all the time because it's so good, right? And I think this is really our gift, endowed in us by God, or our Creator, is that we are mimetic, you know
what does
thinkers.
mimetic mean? I don't know what that means.
So I mean, we take information from our environment, and we can imitate and learn from
Meme it. Okay, okay, got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
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 yeah.
exactly.
Mimic, meme. Okay,
So
cool.
that, yeah, it's what meme is derived from, which is awesome. um and so that is our human gift, and that is beautiful. So it's like, and during like the course of this article, I try to explain it, where it's like, well, technology is not the problem. Like, we've always been technological beings. That's why we're not living in caves right now.
Right.
And I use this very brief, succinct kind of example in the beginning, where and would like to set the tone of the audience here too, while we go into the stages, but just how technology can
Mhm.
improve our lives. So I mean, this is very simplistic, but gets the point across, where it's like Roman masons created the arch, which enabled the aqueduct, which led to the creation of large cities, which facilitated the spread of ideas, in which beautiful art was born, right? So we can just kind of like succinctly see how technology can lead to human prospering. And so I don't fundamentally think that technology is the problem. I think it is kind of our culture and our moral worldview that ends up being the corrupting factor here. And getting back to your point of the stages here, which you have pulled up on the screen. So in any civilization, civilizational rise, or civilizational story arc, right? We have the discovery, which I think some sort of technological advancement that creates schism in the existing paradigm, and from there, you're on the rise, right? The printing press, fire, whatever you want to
Mhm.
point to. It's like, well, we found it, now let's go. And so while you're on the rise, one of the things I think is just important about here is we have entrepreneurs, people willing to go out and work and create things, is when markets are most clear, right? And this bullet point here, the society is prospering as a whole because market signals are clear. There are succinct and functioning feedback loops. Capitalists are using markets to organize capital, deploy capital, and create more capital. So this is kind of like the most pure phase of a
Mm.
civilizational story arc, right? From there, you go into the golden age, which is kind of like the peak of the arc, right? And so this is where people in proximity to the rise have like the most appreciation for it. And then unfortunately, we devolve into debauchery, which I think astutely pointed out, where we could kind of point to where we're at with the United States. And I like to you point out here, I think this is where we enter bureaucratic class, right? So we've kind of, enough time has passed, since the rise, if we want to use the United States as an example here, maybe that's like the early 1900s, roaring 20s, post-war, acceleration. And then, after that, you kind of get comfortable, right? You kind of start resting on your laurels. Enough
Mhm.
time passes, and the people who were a part of building, end up retiring, passing away, whatever, right? And we've left it with, the next the generation. And once you enter a bureaucratic, or once you start bringing in a lot of the bureaucratic class, that's where things tend to fall apart, because they're not so much builders as they are regulators, right? And then at this point too, you're already past the golden age, so you've amassed like this tremendous amount of wealth and power. And while I don't inherently think wealth and power are bad things, I do think they attract the worst type of people, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of get these skewed, incentives, and people are seeking out those things without having earned them themselves. Like, they already exist in society, and they want to skip the steps of creating that themselves. So they just try to get straight to the wealth or power as quickly as they can. And I think specifically in a fiat society, wealth and power, congregates around the money printer,
Yeah.
right? And so once we're in kind of this stage of the cycle, we really lose that sense of a functioning feedback loop, which is detrimental to society, right? And once the mechanism of free markets erodes, we're really left guessing as market participants, right? Because what was once clear signal no longer exists, because there's generally an 800-pound gorilla in the room, the government, choosing winners, picking losers, putting their weight on the scale to, favor, a lobbyist, or adding regulation. I saw you tweeting about SpaceX this week, which was, I mean, phenomenal. I can't believe, this self-landing skyscraper just got like plucked out of the sky, right? Like, it's
Totally.
insane technological feat, right? And it's like, I'm sure somebody was joking on Twitter, but it feels like something that is true, where it's like the hardest part of this was getting it approved by the FAA.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
and so it's like you kind of get a sense of like where we're at, and how the regulators have gotten such big heads, where it's like we should be so appreciative of this technological advancement, but there's all this regulatory red tape in the way, distorting market signals, right?
Yeah, I think it's scary, because obviously things are politicized, and like it said, your people are resorting to lawfare because they can't really compete in these markets right now, because they're so skewed. So, and I think too about, do you know who Mike Benz is?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and so just the censorship industrial complex, which is a whole thing that I've been, learning, studying, trying to understand, and obviously subject to as a participant of, somebody on social media. And it feels like, when you build any type of, governmental entity for a certain thing, whether it's for a war, whether it's for a period of time, whatever, it doesn't ever shut down. Like that entity, that division, that thing, it's like, cool, well, now you built us, let's keep funding it. And it's like, well, but we really don't need you anymore, but those people don't want to lose their positions. They've got, comfortable things. So they start making up problems to solve that aren't there, and it's almost like I think of like the I don't know about you, where you went to college, but like the hall monitors, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
there's people who want to go be the hall monitors, and like, I want to give you a ticket, go, yeah, so it's just this like, people want to feel like they're doing their thing, but I'm like, really, is that a function that we actually need in our culture, in our society, in the world? And so unfortunately people are stuck, in these bureaucratic positions, and they're like, cool, I've got a pension, cool, I've got, security, I've got health insurance, and so I feel like it's a really, how do you unwind the monster, the kraken, the beast that gets built, and unfortunately sometimes it has to explode, and that sucks. So I want to go back to the part of the we can keep going, obviously, because you've got the fall part here. And it's funny, we're going to do a parallel to a conversation I just had before this interview with you, but I want you to keep going. Am I sharing it? Yeah, it's sharing about the fall. Like how do we, because I feel like we're between debauchery and about to have a fall in our world right now, not just the United States.
Totally, totally. So what I really think predicates like debauchery from the fall is when market signals are so skewed because, like you said, the government never gets smaller, right? So there's just more and more regulation, like more and more money printing, to fund whatever they want, and we can get into that more. We don't actually vote on these things. Besides
Mm-hmm.
the point. Um, but when market signals are skewed and market participants can't identify opportunities for themselves, like they resort to gambling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, I don't know if allocating this capital is actually a good decision because the market signals are so skewed. Like, I can't make sense of it. And I think this is such an important thing, aspect of the money printer, right? If you just think of money as an economic measuring stick, right? The more units that enter the system, money and energy go into everything, right? So the larger you make the denominator, the harder it is to identify how valuable the numerator really is. And so you ended up just taking your capital and gambling with it. That's why I don't think there's not a correlation between the rise in sports gambling, predominantly in America, the rise of shitcoinery, right? Because you resort to these get rich quick schemes because you kind of already feel behind the eight ball,
Yep.
that you've gotten robbed and or disadvantaged in some sort of way where you just like need to take your capital and it's like, well, black, put it on black and see what happens, right? Because I can't make that decision for myself because the market is such a mess because the 800-pound gorilla in the room has gotten in the way. And at that point, unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of turning back from that, and you end up moving into the fall category, right? And at this point, like it's a total facade, right? If you can't clearly identify market signals, you're living in a facade stitched together by printed money, right? And ultimately, the root rooster comes home to roost, like whatever that saying is. It's like there are real consequences to these decisions.
Well, there are for some and not for others in this period of time. Like we're looking at what was the bank that just got the 3 billion, I think it was $3 billion fine, which is nothing. It's pennies, uh, for money laundering, drugs and human trafficking. And nobody got prosecuted. There were no consequences uh, to this. Was it TD? Do you know what I'm
I
talking
know
about?
what you're referencing. Yeah, I can't remember the
I
specific
want to say
institution
it,
now.
I don't want to say the wrong name and get involved
Yeah,
because that
right.
would be bad. But it was a huge, 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 huge bank, and they just got like a slap on the wrist, for this terrible behavior. Um, and so I'm not sharing. Hold on, I thought I turned it back on. Uh, yeah, they just got a slap on the wrist, and so it's like you're looking at people who are promoting freedom technologies, right? We've got the samurai devs who uh, are facing, big problems because they wrote some code so that people could have privacy with their money. This is an issue, and I think people listening, who don't understand why it's so important to have, you know, property rights and privacy. Think about cash, right? Like we want to be able to have some cash. Like if all the power goes out in the whole wide world, like we saw, what happened in North Carolina, like you're not trading Bitcoin on your phone. You don't have no internet. You've got no electricity. So to have a cashless society is very dangerous, I think. As much as we all think, oh, I want to be on a Bitcoin standard, yes, to some degree, but we need to have some form of physical money, to transact with each other in case of, radical emergencies like this. And so, can you imagine if you weren't able to have that private stash of cash and that was the only thing you could do was trade this and so it's important to have privacy, it's important to have cash, it's important to have not the government knowing every little thing that you do, because if all of a sudden they determine that everybody has to believe in, Bob the Builder as God, and you're not allowed to be Catholic anymore, and they're going to come after you like they do in certain countries, and persecute you because of your religious beliefs. They'll shut your money system down, and so to me, like, people listening have to understand why having the ability to have private money, whether it's cash, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's gold or diamonds or whatever you might have of value, can protect you from different administrations coming in and out throughout the course of history, and certainly throughout the course of your children's lives and their children's lives. And so Bitcoin offers one of the solutions. It's not the only thing in the world forever, but it can give us an opportunity to have some separation of uh, money from state, so that we're not going to get censored, and that we're not going to lose the ability to feed our families, because the government decided they don't like what you believe in or what you said or whatever it might be. And so unfortunately, we're starting to see that happen right now. Obviously, a couple years ago, the trucker protest, the whole thing, COVID, all these things. And it's just very, very scary, I think, for people to start to wake up to how important it is to understand the money that they're using and the system that they're voting for when they use fiat. And I think that's one thing people don't connect the dots, because every time you use your credit card, every time you play in the game of that fiat system, you're giving them a high five, like, keep going, keep this system alive. Like, I'm voting for violence, I'm voting for censorship, I'm voting for financial and mental slavery. Let's talk about later in the article. Let me see, I don't know how far down was it with the art, I don't want to go over all the properties of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's
Hmm.
super obviously, but I want to get, this is the graph that was really important to me. Um, let's go to, hold on, make sure that it's showing, view tab, wake up tab. There we go. Okay. This. Haha. So can you explain this, and why you think this has gone on? Because we've gone on to a fiat standard, and I want to see if I can make this bigger for people. Hold on. Can I go? Oh, yay, good. Look at that. Hold on. Yeah, the death of despair and its components. What does this mean, Wyatt? I'm so sad
Yeah.
looking at this.
No, absolutely. This is a very depressing graph. I don't think there's any other way around it. I was actually um, really disappointed and kind of pissed off. I can only find a graph that went to 2017, so that doesn't even include COVID. I have to imagine these numbers are even
Wait,
worse.
yeah,
Unfortunately, anything after this I could find was only race based. That wasn't like the point I was trying to get across. So I settled with the older uh, data here. And so this was done by a Senate study commissioned by the U.S. Senate. And so they list the three main categories of deaths of despair as suicide, alcohol related, and drug related. And then we have that top line being like the overall deaths. And so the idea behind this is, like, if there are deaths related to one of these three categories, that's not like somebody dying of old age, right? That is um, death created or warranted or facilitated through artificial means, right? And so these people that unfortunately feel like they've lost purpose, they don't have a purpose, so they're turning towards things that ultimately hurt them and will kill them in the long term, which is extremely sad, because we started this conversation about how beautiful humanity is, and how we have
hmm,
such great gifts, and how we were created in the image and likeness of God. And this was not our intention to live out on earth, is to be suffering these
right,
consequences. And I full-heartedly believe this is a symptom of fiat money, right? And it really has to do with just the vast amounts of money printing. And I think it's particularly wicked and evil stealing from people
yep,
through inflation, because they have no sense of how they are being stolen from. Like, it
no,
happens behind closed doors, it happens without you noticing, it happens slowly over time. It's like particularly, post COVID, there's been a lot of stuff on, Twitter and, various social media where it's like, my, cart of groceries cost, $20, pre, explosion of money printing, and, post explosion of money printing, around COVID, they cost, 40, $50. But obviously, you know, most people working, some sort of W-2, salary, their pay hasn't kept up. And I think this really just creates like this sort of societal rot, right? And this is, referencing back to the stages, like this is the facade, right? How can we keep like the music going without people, recognizing it? And, there's a thought in Keynesian economics, that was widely propagated for over 20 years now. I would say probably almost all of the 21st century is that, inflation's been tamed, it's been defeated, it doesn't even exist anymore. Like we have us as central planners, right? And it's like, we're so good. We were able to just rid this of the world, which, you know, obviously isn't the case. And, as Bitcoiners, we are, you know, acutely aware of that, but I don't think most people are, and it's very sad because like I think when you're faced with just trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's struggling to make do, if you're just getting constantly robbed from on top of the stressors of an everyday life, right? I think a lot of the deterioration of the family was actually more manufactured than not, bringing in, forcing families to have, two, both parents, working, taking a parent out of the home, into the workforce just to make ends meet. And then on top of it, you have both parents, working and they're not making ends meet. It's like, it creates like this weird social environment where it's like it feels like everybody's on edge. They know something's wrong. Like there's strife and violence and disorder, and people are frustrated, but they can't point to why. And it's like I think that makes people even more upset is they can't articulate. It's like why they feel this way, why society is degrading around them. And so people, unfortunately, as this graph shows, turn to things to try to numb the pain, which ultimately end up hurting them even more.
Yeah, totally. I think, Seb Bunny, have you read his book?
I haven't, but I have listened to
Oh,
quite a few of his interviews on
yeah,
podcasts, and
I
he's
love Seb.
fantastic.
He's incredible. And, he talks a lot about these points you're bringing up and just the difference between, acute anxiety and generalized, because you sense, like you just said, you can sense it in your bones, you sense it in your soul, something's wrong, but you don't understand exactly what. And it's like you're constantly in the scarcity mindset. If you're doing this thing and I'm trying to raise the kids and this and that, and you're stressed out and your cortisol levels are really high, and so you're in fear a lot. And so fear is not a healthy vibration to be in a lot. It's a useful one. We need to have fear as humans, right? If the tiger's chasing you, like you should be afraid so that your, parasympathetic system shuts down and your sympathetic gets engaged and you can go run and get away. It's important, so fear is not a bad thing, but you shouldn't be in that state all the time. It causes many, many health issues, it causes obviously relationship issues. And I think it sucks. It's by design, to keep people on, the treadmill, on the hamster wheel. And you nailed it too. Just they don't understand that they're actually being stolen from. Nobody voted for these central planners. Nobody voted to go print 40% during COVID of the money supply. Nobody keeps voting to expand, 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 And so because it's done this way behind the scenes, like you said, people aren't, and you don't see the effects for 12 to 18 months down the road of when these things start happening. So it's not just like, oh, all of a sudden they raised interest rates or lowered interest rates or they did all this. It's like you're going to have these longer term effects. And so people don't connect the dots. It's one thing if a politician said, I'm going to raise all of your taxes up to, 60% this year. Are you going to vote for them? No. Everyone's going to be like, I don't like you. Go away. But that's what they're doing when they're printing this money, because what they're doing is taking away your purchasing power. Even though you think like, look, my house went up in value, it didn't go up in the ability for you to have the same purchasing power that you did 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, And so when people really they get so excited and they think, oh, everything went up. And it's like, everything went up except your income levels, and so it's like you're not as powerful as you were as a person, and now you've got to have these two earner um, homes. But you're obviously, like you said, you're a young family in training, right? You guys want to grow and have children. Like, what's it like for you, Wyatt? Thinking, you know, like, are you hoping that your wife would get to stay home with the kids and you get to do the thing that the dads do? Like, is that even a possibility in this generation because of the way that the fiat system is poisoning our dreams for the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, Val, and it's something my wife and I, talk about a lot and check in. And I think if we didn't have our faith and we didn't have Bitcoin, it'd be totally different story,
Yeah.
right? Because Catholicism, we have sacraments that we firmly believe in, and marriage is one of those where husband and wife become one flesh, and my role and my vocation as the husband is to be the head of the family, and my wife's role and vocation as the wife is to be the body of the family. And so
Mm.
my vocation responsibilities is to provide and protect. Her vocation responsibility is to take care of the home and raise the children in the faith. And it's like we wholeheartedly believe that, right? And it's like, yeah, we're Catholic, and that's part of our religious teachings, but it's like that is also something I think pretty tried and true in humanity in general, right? Like I, as a man, and you have a woman, we have different chemicals literally flowing through our blood that drive us to feel different things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'll hold a baby and think it's cute. My wife holds a baby and feels a totally different connection to it
Yep.
because we're different biological
Yep.
beings, right? And so that gives us a ton of confidence and faith, where it's like I know waking up every morning, it's like what my responsibilities are. And then also I don't think I would be able to our hopes is when we're trying to have a kid by the time we conceive and the baby's born. Our hope is that my wife will be able to stay home and raise our family, and then we'll be and we have some friends at our church that do a great job of describing it, where it's like you we're not like a single income family, right? We might be like the one single earner, but multiple streams of income, right? So I take my role as an entrepreneur very seriously, because when you go out and try to create value in the world, like you are somewhat uncapped on like what you're able to do, because you're taking the risk to go out and build something yourself. Whereas at a, if I was just working a W-2 job, I would feel much less confident that I would be able to take care of my family on just a single income source. So, and then ultimately we have decided to account on a Bitcoin standard with a deflationary savings technology, as opposed to a fiat standard that, like we've touched on, is constantly being eroded under our feet. So I think it's our faith and Bitcoin and taking the risk to start a company and being entrepreneurs. Like these are all tools available to everybody to embrace. It's just, are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to learn about a different monetary system and opt into that and kind of retrain your brain? So it's really the combination of those things that I think the world we want to live in is going to be possible.
And and you mentioned something. Obviously, there's a lot of folks who are just. It's interesting. My friend Heather posted something. I think it was yesterday. She said entrepreneurs are born, and and I would, in my experience, meeting people who are W-2 people versus entrepreneurs, they're different breeds of people. And I would say like the qualities and characteristics, and they're both wonderful groups of humans, but there are certain people who are not entrepreneurs. It would mess up their brains. Like my mom is a great example. I love you, Mom. Um, the idea of her being an entrepreneur, she would have a nervous breakdown and forget about it, right? And so obviously, a lot of women aren't necessarily up. There are a lot of great women entrepreneurs, that's for sure. But there are certain men too who is just like let me go do my task because I'm really good at building, or I'm really good at X, Y, or Z, but like running the connected dots of being an entrepreneur is like, it's not happening for some people. And being an entrepreneur, like you're an octopus, until you can build out teams where you get the specialized folks, it's like you're the team. And then you can learn how to grow your teams. And so some people are just completely not cut out for that. So what would you say to folks who are happily working in their engineering job, or happily working as a nurse, or happily working as a doctor, on their W-2, journey? Like, how would you help them? And this is not financial advice. Um, what advice would you maybe say to folks like that who are, in that position?
Totally. No, I do think you're right. But ultimately, everything is a series of trade offs at
Yeah.
the end of the day, right? So it's like, if you don't think you possess those skills, I would challenge you on that for one. A lot of people
Good.
like their W-2 job just because it's comfortable and
Yeah.
it's predictable, which are all good things, and there's certainly things I wish I had sometimes. Don't get me wrong, but I think kind of touching back on the technology point, there's so many tools and resources out there nowadays where it's like you might be uncomfortable at first, but I would say anybody is capable of tapping into these, and I try to encourage people too. It's like when they think of entrepreneurship, it's like, oh, I need to invent something new. I need to be Elon Musk. It's like there's so many different types of
Yeah.
businesses you can do, and there's so many different ways to make money. It's just like I would just try to deduce it to like the most simple form. It's like, what can you do to add value to somebody else, and that could already be something that exists. It's like you can you know just because there's one accountant doesn't mean there shouldn't be three accountants, right? Like there's always
Yeah.
more ways to add value. And then I think a lot of it has to do with Bitcoin too. Even if you really don't feel comfortable leaving W-2, you think you're wired to be a part of it, that's fine. But then it's like using my situation specifically, that means I'd be sacrificing potentially on my children's future, and removing the mother from the home, and
Hmm.
making her go out in the workplace. So we both had W-2 income. So it's like, well, I'm trading off my comfortability of a predictable income, but also sacrificing the potential of my children and my household. So it's like that frankly isn't a trade I'm willing to make. Maybe some people are. I'm not dogging on them for that. I'm just trying to be transparent about the decision being made. And then I think too is a huge aspect that not a lot of people, especially new to Bitcoin, grasp, is that it is a savings technology. The River has this great graphic I'm thinking of, where it's like the price of a home denominated in Bitcoin and then
Hmm.
denominated in fiat, and to your point earlier, where
Over
it's like,
time.
yeah, exactly. That home's getting cheaper in Bitcoin terms. So it's like then I would say like the third aspect of this is like, okay, well, if you're firmly staying in your W-2 position, I would at least encourage you to learn about Bitcoin, and then learn about accounting your life in a new and different monetary system that is based in a savings technology.
I love it. I love it. I know. I think, I'm a visual learner, so I always like graphs or charts or before and after. Or if you saved in Bitcoin instead of saving in, dollars or whatever, like you would have this much purchasing power if you did this over 5 years, whatever. And so I think it's, we're all different types, there's 5 learning styles. So it's like, what's your learning style? And it's important to, like, as an educator, as somebody who's, we're all obsessed with, adoption and hyper Bitcoinization. It's important for us to, like, use tools available to us to help become better, more effective communicators. I think AI is such an important tool now too. um, and I think we talk about number go up, we talk about freedom go up, we talk about love go up, peace go up, all of it, right? And we think about humanity go up. And so collectively, we talk, you're saying humanity's fatal flaw. And so it's like AI is just a tool, just like Bitcoin is a tool. Like last night I'm a total nerd. So instead of Netflix, I watched YouTube videos about AI crap, and it's mind blowing, or marketing or whatever. I just love learning, and I'm like, just so cool because if you can get on YouTube because it's free, if you have an internet connection, you can learn anything at this point, and like just last night I'm learning about um these bots that people are building, and she's like, you can build a whole blog business in using this thing. And she's like, you do this, you create an RSS feed, then you do chat GPT, you tell it to do this thing, and then you post it over here. And every time this thing gets updated, it's going to go here and regurgitate your stuff with your words, your brand, your, stuff. And you can make a picture. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like anybody can go learn these things if you can watch a video and follow along and type in a couple of things. You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to be a million, billionaire financial genius, but like you can up level your skills with the technology that's out there that's very ridiculously affordable. Like you can use ChatGPT for free. Not that I'm in love with, Sam Altman at this moment, but I am
Right.
concerned about his privacy practices and security. I am a little concerned. But with all of the AI, not just him in general, but like, but like if we decide that we want to go up level our skills in the world, it's like at our anybody can go do it. There's no excuse not to, And so do you think like, because the younger generation has been, gifted with this poopy inheritance of fiat and inflation, and short-term thinking and instant gratification, I think about the way that any of our minds, and especially young people's minds, are being programmed with instant gratification on the social media and the likes. It's like, do you feel like the younger generation is at a disadvantage because they have to do so much reprogramming to get on this proof of work, low time preference mindset and lifestyle, because they have to unprogram themselves from, maybe a decade or so, of being programmed in the social media world that they're in?
Yeah, no, it is a great question. I think like every generation feels like they got it worse, right? So I
Sure.
think, yeah, that's kind of like something, innate within us as humans. But, ultimately it's like, yeah, I think that that is a good point. I do, worry about like some of the long-term, effects of, social media on a,
Hmm.
young brain. And, um, but at the same time, I think like their benefit is they were raised in a, kind of digital,
Hmm.
environment, right?
Yeah.
And they're kind of able to, pick up on, stuff, quicker than some of the older generations. And what I would really actually like to see, what I advocate, and I think the faith has really helped me identify too, is that we are creatures born at different times into different
Yeah.
environments, but the fact, we're still, endowed with individual agency by our creator, right? That
Yeah.
is an innate gift that every human, has, right? So I would just, try to encourage people, whatever, age or generation they are, is to lean into that, right? And I think, a lot of the current movement, I, associate a lot of this with wokeness, is it tries to remove your individual agency and teach you to be a victim. And I
Yeah.
just honestly don't believe that's the case. And I think anybody is capable, to that Naval quote. It's like we are phenomenal species. We have all these great gifts that everybody is born with, and that they have the right to. And so I would just encourage people to lean into that, and to take matters into their own hands, because we can, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's powerful.
It is powerful, and especially, in places where we do have the freedom to do so. In some places you don't have the freedom to be as expressive as you want or as curious as you want and follow different threads of your imagination and skills. Like you're just like, nope, this is your life forever. You have to go do this factory. You have to go dig in a mine until, you keel over. Um, I know it's the top of the hour. How much time do you have? I want to respect your time.
Yeah, no, I can keep going.
Okay, good, good, good,
I
good.
stop. Yeah.
Because I'm not done with you yet. Why? um, again, coming back to the wokeism that I think unfortunately people are getting polluted with right now, and it's unfortunate, because I think we've got a sense of entitlement, and that's, I think, where this wokeism stuff is coming from. I used to be very far left ish, because I used to think like, oh, we want to, include everybody, and we want equal rights and fairness, and we don't want to have people telling us what to do, and my body, whatever it is. I used to really be very much in that camp, but I feel like it's gotten so ridiculous over, and it's just like everybody just wants a handout. They don't want to show up and do the work. They don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to take time and, learn something and take the time to develop a craft, or, um, we think it just as an example, music, right? It's like in the old days, you took time, you learned the chords, you learned the thing. It took, a while to learn something, and then it took a while to get in a studio, and then you would record on a tape, and you'd have to go splice the tape, and it was a process. And now I can say, make me a hip hop song that sounds like Kanye, singing like a clown, like a Pokemon or something, and then all of a sudden you get a song, and you're like, I made that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. The
Yeah.
guys who made the computer code did. Okay. And so I think it's like we've got like an interesting gift that it's like, cool, let's go use these tools. But it's also like, let's remember that it's like, okay, who made the tools, and should I be maybe focusing my direction and being a tool maker, and learning how to do that, or taking those tools and doing something even more exponentially interesting with them, and not just, I mean, it's fun to make memes and it's fun to make all these little things, but it's like, what are you doing to better yourself and humanity with the technology that exists, that's in front of us? And because I think we're going to go through, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but we're going to go through a lot of displacement because the machines keep coming in, and it's good. Like, why would you have a human do something that a machine can do 10 times, 100 times faster and better, and they can do it 24 hours a day? Like, let's
Hmm.
free up some of that
Hmm.
human capital, that mind capital, that heart capital, that creativity. But it's like there's going to be this population of people who haven't been trained yet and haven't been upskilled into the next level, and they're going to be like, I think, mentally lost a little bit, right? So it's like there's people who are used to, oh, I was so used to my position and my income, like how do they support their family now that they've been laid off because robots are taking over? And that's been going on for a long time since, but I think it's going to go a lot faster because of AI and all this integration. You don't need to hire a copywriter anymore.
Yeah.
You don't need to hire all these people to do the things that would cost a lot of money and time. So it's like, where does all this talent get to go? And I know a lot of people argue about universal basic income, so that everybody can at least, but that to me is, I don't know. I don't feel like that's going to be the solution. Like, I want free markets. I want people to work. Because I think your human spirit diminishes when you're not contributing. Like, you get apathetic, you get lazy mentally, you get lazy physically and spiritually. And so it's like, we're designed to do things. We're designed to procreate, we're designed to create. And so what would you say to like people who might be in a transition period, in the next wave of how can they participate in the future?
Absolutely. No, I love what you just said. I couldn't agree more. You know, it's easy to be a pessimist, right? And it's like, oh, woe is me, whatever it may be. But ultimately, I think technology creates opportunity, right? And it's like there used to be a lot of switchboard operators.
Hmm.
It's like literally plugging in like a phone
Totally.
line into like a different line to connect a call. And I don't know what year the last one of them was employed, but the point of the story is that the economy expanded, through technology to,
Yes.
create new jobs in different fields. And so I think that will continue happening. And, I just, would reference back to that, Naval quote. It's like, there's nothing, given the time and resources that, we can't comprehend. It might be difficult. It might require sacrifice,
Yeah.
but ultimately, too, that same vein, like you were saying, it's never been easier to get access and learn about AI and marketing because we have YouTube, and YouTube wasn't around, and so it's like I really, don't get me wrong, it's easy to get lost in the noise. I'm certainly guilty of that, or it's like,
Yeah.
wow, everything's going to shit, whatever it may be, but you know I'm trying to be a techno optimist. I consider myself a a patriot, and it's like
Mhm.
onward. That's one of the reasons like I'm so excited. For Bitcoin is like we've been given this gift, and Sailor has this great quote that I love, where it's like Satoshi found a way, created a way, and then like gave it away. It's something along those lines. And so it's just like that's something in 2006 like we didn't even know about. And fast forward to 2024, coming up on the white paper day here in about a couple weeks. It's
Yeah.
like we have this whole new opportunity to explore and build on. And so I just try to embrace those opportunities. Try to step back from the noise, touch grass, embrace big picture, and see how you can exploit opportunities. I mentioned in the piece where technology creates a schism in the existing paradigm. What
Mhm.
are you going to do as a human with individual agency to take advantage of said opportunity, right? And
Totally.
so I really encourage people to just try to flip the script and think about it a little differently, because I think especially for young people, to your point, they might be in this state of despair. So
Mhm.
for simplicity's sake, let's say like the majority of ninth graders fall into this opportunity. They think they've been wronged, and in a lot of ways they have. But if you're willing to rise above that and take your life into your own hands, like those people
Mhm.
are going to be extremely easy to beat in the free market, because they've already waved the white flag. So it's like you just need to go out and create. And yeah, it's hard. Like that's the point. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But
Yeah.
I think it will be that much easier for people to rise above if their peers are in this woe is me state.
Yeah, I know. I think it unfortunately, you get into that group think, around people who are experiencing pain, and you have, trauma bonding and all of this, and people, you know, join forces, and then they get mad at, they shake a stick at the system, so instead of just being like, you're the first point of action in your own life, you're it. Like no one's coming to save you. And so one of my teachers, he's just like, we're all just walking around with our umbilical cords out looking for our mommy, to take care of us, And so that mentality, it's like at some point you get to grow up and be the mommy or the daddy. And so that's called adulthood and maturity. And so, um, and I'm not saying that you need to all grow up super fast and not enjoy your youth and be, playful and fun, but that a lot of people who are adults, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it doesn't matter. Like they haven't gotten over that part with that umbilical cord out because they want someone else to fix things. They want someone else to take care of them, etc. And so I know we all go through phases of that. I've been that way. I'm not like some perfect, I'm Jesus or I'm Buddha or I'm not. I'm a dumb human. Um, you know, but I feel like, the more that we perpetuate, someone else is going to come save you and you're a victim versus you and your creator are rocking together on this planet, that's kind of how you can, I think, move through life a lot more successfully with less stress. What do you say? Like, you remember the dock workers struck a couple, like 2 weeks ago? I mean,
Mhm.
obviously that was going to cost tons of money for the world, not just our country, but, and I think I recall one of their demands was they don't want to have the machines take their jobs. And it was like, they're running a business. Of course, the machines are going to take your jobs. That's like saying, I'm going to do all my invoicing on paper,
Right.
and I'm going to
Right.
mail everything by a pigeon. Um, yeah, dude, your job's getting taken. Sorry, but that's what's happening. So, what are you going to do for your life? Like you can't slow the progress train down. It's just like, oh no, there's cars. Well, no, we need to keep everything in horse and buggy. We want forever. No, okay, now you used to change the shoes on the horses, like, okay, now you're gonna go learn how to do tires,
Right.
like, get over, like, that's where I think people need to get into that position of like, "This is cool, what else can I go play with and do?" And not feel like, it's tough. I mean, change, a lot of the people I work with and clients and workshops and stuff I do, it's like change is tough. It's the scariest, hardest thing, especially, if it comes quickly and it wasn't your choice.
Yep.
If it wasn't your choice, it's difficult. People resist, they cling on, and they're like, no. And so empathy, of course, is important, and love and compassion for people who are going through these things. But it's like there's so many tools out there to explore and play with, and have some fun and get creative with, your next chapter of life. Um, let's talk about a chapter of yours, Wyatt. Let's talk about the space chapter. Dun 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 dun. I don't know if we've got any space members watching it. Go Denver, go Bitcoin Citadel. Tell everybody about the Denver space. And you and the team have been so remarkable. And that watching the journey of you guys getting this, I'm so impressed and grateful to get to see it flourish and participate in my little tiny way.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Valerie. This has been in this space, I think, is like probably one of the most important, projects I'll work on in my career. It's
Nice.
just like, it is for sure a labor of love. It started a little bit over a year ago, born out of bit devs. And like the whole point was like, well, how can we go space? Thanks, Rob. Um,
Yay.
yeah, how can we bring the community, the Bitcoin community together, more intentionally. In Denver, I think Denver is like, we joke where it's like the greater Front Range like probably has like a very high cypherpunk to NPC ratio, right?
Ooh, is there a number? Like, is that a word we should come up with, like a CPNPC? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, go.
Yeah, it's so there's just a tremendous amount of talent here, and I am like consistently blown away by the talent. Our small humble group has attracted, and it makes me just want to work that much harder. And so this is like a Bitcoin Citadel, right? So it's very similar to Bitcoin Park or Commons, and those folks have been, great helping us out and giving us advice and, along the way. But they took a little bit more of a, top down approach with like some sort of investor or owner where, the space is ground up and it's community driven and, it's member operated. So, we just came together and started, crowdfunding. It's like, can we make this dream become a reality with the own resources and talent in our community here locally? And it has just been so rewarding to see. And I'm of the belief where it's like you create your own luck through hard work. And as that would have it, we were able to move into a beautiful building and really see the mission of the space come to life here. And so we just moved in here in 10/1, October 1. And it's been phenomenal. Vibes are extremely high. Everybody's chipping in and contributing. Valerie, you're a huge part of that. You don't give yourself enough credit, but it really just, I think, goes to show like what individuals can do when they're motivated and they have something they mutually care about. And because it's a team effort. It's like no one person could do all this by herself. So it's like utilizing the different skill sets of our members and volunteers
Yeah.
to make it all happen. And so we're really trying to make this a mission. Our mission embodies a lot of the values of Bitcoin, individual agency, privacy. We're trying to open source as much of what we've put together as possible. Our bylaws, we're a nonprofit, so how do you file one of those? Because we want to make the next Citadel that much easier to open. So
Yeah.
it's truly something special. I could not be more excited to do a little part of it and be a little part of it myself. But extremely bullish on the space. If you haven't heard of it, check out our socials. Valerie's got the website up here. It's a great
Yep.
project.
Yeah, let me put it up here. Captions. Hold on. Oh, yeah, that's a visual of the website. So it's denver.space for everybody listening if you can't see what's on the screen. I know it's super cool. And I mean, this is what I love so much too, again, about our friends and family and Bitcoiners. It's like we want to open source everything. We want everybody to like, here's the playbook. Okay, add to it, do what you want. Okay, let's talk about what worked, what didn't. Okay, you're in this environment with these types of people. This works better here. Don't okay, let's experiment. So it's not like, oh, we're so closed doors and everything's like, oh, we don't want anybody to know. It's like we want Bitcoin to succeed and thrive, because it's love. And I mean, I think Bitcoin is love, and it's one form of love. And the more love, the better, right? What kind of world do we want to live in? We want to live in a world of love. But I think it's super cool because we're sharers, and we're competitive with ourselves. It's like, how can we make it better? It's not a zero sum game of you win, I lose, etc. So it's like, it really is this beautiful win-win uh, culture and subculture. And I think that's what's so cool is like, when people show up together physically, it's intimidating. I was just doing this interview with Ben Werman before this, and he was asking me about women, right? And we talk a lot about, there's not as many women, obviously, as men in the Bitcoin space, or in many spaces for that matter, finance and whatnot. And so, but Bitcoin is something that's ubiquitous. Like, everybody needs to use. If you're a mom, it's important to know what Bitcoin is for your family, to teach your children fiscal responsibility and financial literacy. It's very, very important. It's not just, okay, men get to do all this stuff and women are over here and, okay, honey. It's because, unfortunately, as we're still not there yet in this utopia, but there are situations where women have to escape a domestic violence situation or something. And so having Bitcoin and the understanding of how to use it safely so that you don't get attacked because you're saving to try to escape. It's important that women take, ownership of their financial sovereignty as well, even in a marriage and a partnership, because God forbid, something goes sideways, and so we really want to make sure people understand about sound money. And so building the Denver space and having an opportunity for families to come, and having an opportunity for kids and after school programs and women and whoever, to show up. It's very satisfying to be in a room with people versus a Zoom call, versus just, a Discord space or a Telegram space that feels impersonal and kind of scary, And so I'm so impressed with you guys, like, making that happen. Like, it's like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to see all the before and afters of people's lives because they got to go to the space in Denver that you guys built. Like, imagine the possibilities of the before and after transformation.
Oh, it's going to be crazy, and we're just getting started, which is the beautiful part.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I'm like, oh, I'm going to cry. And I know that I know the space is like right near a school, and you think about like people thinking about new opportunities to become developers or to become entrepreneurs, and all the little things that you can do in these four walls. They're gorgeous, by the way. Are you in? Like, I saw the sliding door. Are you there
I
right
am in the
now?
space. Yeah.
I'm all like, cool. Um, yeah, I mean, it's so neat. And I just, it's hope, like when you walk in, you feel hopeful. Like, it feels like it's a hopeful place, a hopeful space. Um, so congrats. I mean, what's
Thank you.
on the agenda?
Thank you.
Tell everybody what's happening. Like, give them a heads up of what's happening at the Denver space in the near future.
Absolutely. So
Mhm.
we're starting to roll out a bunch of events. Our opening week will start November 14th with one of our, we couldn't do this alone. We have four founding corporate sponsors: Unchained, Casa, Fetty, and Compass Mining.
Yeah,
Um,
baby.
yep, this is our calendar. This is our public event calendar. I think our most recent event coming up is I'm actually hosting an event on 10/24 with Matt Dines of Build Asset Management and Rocky Wold of Unchained. We're talking
Oh,
about
cool.
the financialization of Bitcoin. I think that's going to be a really cool event meant to, explain how the best of TradFi is coming to Bitcoin, how we can deepen Bitcoin capital markets. But the fun space stuff, it will be coming. We'll be doing our opening week in about mid-November. We're kicking that off with the Compass Mining technical event on the 14th, and then
Mhm.
you will be having a hopefully event on the 15th, and then our opening party on the 16th. So still need to update the calendar. There's a lot to do,
There's all sorts of good stuff. I know, it's gonna be so great. I know I'm really, really excited for this, and book clubs and the women's stuff. There's all sorts of great things happening, guys. And so make sure you go figure this out. So tell, people who are listening, obviously not everybody's listening that are from Denver, but do people have to be a member to go to all of these events? Like, if there's like a open thing on the calendar, can people show up and be a part of it, like in a meetup?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the events are open to the public. A handful of events will be, member only. There's like a social club aspect of the space, which I'm, very bullish on. I think you will see like the rise of, social clubs again, post COVID. That's a trend I'm bullish on. And, that's, some offerings, value propositions we have to our members is having, exclusive events. But, uh, we're our educational nonprofit, so a big mission of ours is to help grow Bitcoin adoption, specifically in our local community, but then outsourcing as much as possible, so that can expand past just Denver or the Front Range. So a lot of our events will be open to the public, and you were just showing like the public event calendar as well. So if you
Cool.
are in the area passing through, I think that's another huge benefit of being in Denver, having a massive airport. A lot of people coming out to enjoy the mountains at a different time of year. Please check our calendar and stop by if we're having something. We're looking to bring Bitcoiners together from around the world.
That's gonna be so fun. I know I was like, I can't wait for people who are going on their holidays and ski adventures or
Yeah,
something, and I'm like, "Okay, stop at the space on your way to Aspen or Vail or something,"
yeah,
like, come see everybody and check it out. It's so cool. It's just such a neat I love, the different pop-ups of all these little communities everywhere, and then some physical, some not. It's just so cool that everybody's just taking it into their own hands to be builders and creators, and that's what's so cool about the ethos and the culture of Bitcoiners. So it's so cool. Um, any final words, Wyatt? I want people to be able to come find you at wyatto'rourke.com for those of you who can't see what's on screen right now. And you can also follow Wyatt at WR O'Rourke on X. I'll have all this stuff in the show notes and everything, in the Denver space, Denver.space too. Um, I know we talked a lot about a whole bunch of different subjects. Like I feel like, I'd love to hear some words of wisdom to younger folks or people who are, interested in learning about Bitcoin. What would you say to them right now?
absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me, Val. This was a ton of fun. I was happy to chop it up with you, and
Me
feel
too.
very fortunate for this opportunity. But I would just encourage everybody to find a moral worldview that and adopt a
Mm.
moral worldview that is going to guide them through the good and the bad times. It's like suffering and challenges are innate in our human experience. We shouldn't shy away from those. We shouldn't give up our individual agency because we experience those. That's just a part of our own individual stories. So the more we have to fall back on outside of Bitcoin, within our faith communities, within our families, the stronger we can rise as a unit. So I would encourage people to seek out a moral worldview that will help you get through the challenges you will ultimately face.
Wow, I love that, Wyatt. That's like the best advice ever. I know uh, my son has this spiritual vitamins book on his bed, and every day it's like a little, thing from the Bible. And I went in today and looked at what was on, October 16th, and it was about, uh, when you feel like giving up is the best time, to just give it over to God, and God's got you,
Yes,
and don't, and because we all sometimes feel like screw it, and I've been there multiple times in my life. And um, it's just like, no, this is a gift. This is a gift for you to get closer to your, whatever you believe in, whatever God you believe in. If you believe in the universe, nature, whatever it is, like your faith, your path to love and God is so important. Your path to living a value led life, a value driven life. And um, it's like that's what keeps me going too, Wyatt. Like my connection with God is the most important relationship in my life, and it
absolutely.
it's so beautiful, and I keep learning each day, and I'm like, "Oh, right. I'm not doing any of this. It's through the grace of God, that I get to go do what I do." So yeah, it's so important. I love that advice. It's the best thing ever. So thanks. um, and oh my gosh, thanks so much for taking all your time, and your wisdom, and your article is great. You guys, I'm going to have this, and there's a whole bunch in there that, we didn't get to go over. And if you're, still kind of new to Bitcoin, there, really dissects like what sound money is and whatnot. And it's a great, great, great post. I love it. And I'll put it in the show notes and everything for people to read. But until next time, and until I see you at the space, I'm just wishing everybody peace, love, and warm aloha. And thanks again for tuning in. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much, Wyatt. And
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody from the space for making the space. You guys rock. Go Bitcoin.